Hi everyone, this is Lina. Welcome back to the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. Today we are making a birthday card using the Balloon Besties by My Favorite Things, as well as the 3-Room Studio Slimline Die by Crafty Meraki. I'm going to start with my background first, and therefore I have die cut this slimline die out of Transotype perfect coloring paper. This is the same paper as I will use for my images later on, and I just find it handy that I have the same white on my background as on the outline of my images. So that's why I'm using this paper. Today's card is going to be really pink with some blue accents, so I decided for the background to use some Concord and 9th inks, Ballet Slipper and Honeysuckle, which are two amazingly gorgeous pinks. Now I thought that these were close to each other, but actually if you watch this, then personally I thought that the Honeysuckle was really pink, and then the Ballet Slippers, when I started blending, was a bit towards the pinkish orangey color, which I don't mind in the end. I just created a blend between both of them, and then later on the balloons of the images I will try to also have some sort of an orangey pink as one of the color combinations. What you also can see here is that I try to keep the bottom of this panel white, so I created a really soft blend towards the white of the cardstock itself using the Ballet Slippers. So this is already my background. I'm not going to add anything. This card is going to be really simple, letting the images shine on this amazing slimline panel. So these 3 images are the ones that I'm going to use today. These are from the Balloon Besties, an amazing new stamp set released in February by My Favorite Things. And I just think it's a gorgeous set. There are so many birthday related sentiments in there. The critters are just adorable. And then of course there are also some support sentiments. So you can do actually anything with this set. For the coloring of today, I'm going to show you 3 different color combinations for these critters, just to give you a variety of options if you're looking for some marker combinations. I will be linking towards my blog post where I am going to list the color combinations separately so that it's easy to see which ones I use for which image. And I hope that that can be helpful for you. And already I am almost done with my first layer of this first image. Now, how I color with my Copic markers is from darkest towards lightest, and this paper specifically asks me to at least do 2 layers. At least. Something that is really handy about this paper is that it allows you to add lots of layers if you want to, if you need to, or if you want to go crazy with your shadowing. This really lets you do that without anything starting to bleed, which is always handy. But at least I need 2 layers, and for the most part that's enough for me to get the blend as I want. But well, you never know. So this is a first bunny, and then for the ears and the noses I will use the same colors on all of them, so I will leave that to the end when all the critters have their own skin tone already. Cleaning up the edges, which is something that I always do. I have a colorless blender, which is amazing. If you go outside the lines, then you just correct that using this marker, and it helps you push that color back in as like nothing ever happened. You didn't go outside the lines ever, and I just love that. So onto the second one. This bunny is going to be a really soft brownish color, one that I don't use often, but actually I really like it. It's a really soft brown. It's not really in your face, which is sometimes handy depending on which card you are making. So I'm again going from darkest to lightest onto my second layer now, and this really helps me with the blend. Also, if you want to do some shadowing and stuff, In my first layer, I am really careful with the amount of shadowing or the amount of the darkest color that I add. And then when I have my first layer on there, I can really see that there are more possibilities, or that there is more room to add a bit more shadow. And then I just add it in the second layer. It's easier to add color than to remove color. So just with that in mind, I always try to be careful in the beginning and then go a bit broader when I know that I can do that. So I didn't like the blend after the second time, so just doing it third time until I'm happy. If you are having difficulties with blending, you can do a tip to tip if you want to. You can also use a flicking motion. I often realize that when I do a flicking motion that it really helps me. So if I have some colors that aren't as easy to blend, I just flick a bit, first my darkest, then my mid-tone and such, and that can really help. So you don't need to have all the markers necessarily. Just try some things out, and maybe you can have like a solution until you have new markers or until you have new budget for markers. You don't need them all. So this final color combination is a really warm brown tone and I love it. But as you can see here, the first blend between my E18 and E15 is rubbish. It doesn't blend. In my opinion, this is just one color next to the other one, although I try to blend it. But then when I start on my second layer, you will definitely see that these two will blend together. And it's so funny, I think, as some markers truly need a bit of help before they start blending. So this is the first layer, and now I'm on to the second one. So I'm actually just going over the same shadows, and if I have more place, like in the face it's quite big, I can add a bit of a thicker layer of shadows. So now the magic will be happening between these two markers. In my opinion, these blend so much better with the second layer, and I really like this color combination. It's a really warm brown color combination. So I'm just making sure to go over everything, and then all the skin tones are ready. So I can just start adding the ears and the noses there where needed, and then I will continue with the colors. the coloring done, I'm going to take the matching dies and cut these 3 cuties out. I use some purple tape to keep my dies in place before I run it through my die cutting machine. And once these are cut out, we can figure out where the sentiment has to go. Now, this slimline, I use it often like this with the 2 windows on the top and then the one on the bottom. But you can definitely turn it around and you will get a completely different card because there is maybe more place on the top for your sentiments. But in this case, I'm going to place the sentiments on the bottom. I really wanted to have the darkest color on the top, so that's why I have my slimline oriented like this. And then the sentiment, I will just stamp it out using the same black ink, Gina Design Amalgam ink, that I used for the critters as well. So I'm stamping it out a few times just to make sure that the impression is completely there. And once I'm happy with it, I can start actually to assemble things. But before I truly added things, I wanted to have some extra items on this card. Now you can decide on using embellishments, but have you seen this adorable little cloud that is in the stamp set? So I decided to stamp it out multiple times without thinking ahead of time where everything needed to go, and I colored them in using the same blues as I used on the balloons as well. Now I will have a few lighter and a few darker clouds, and I will end up with the darker clouds on the top of the card, as is the pink the darkest color, and then the other ones will be more on the bottom. Now after die cutting these, I think 8 clouds, I was so exhausted because it is repetitive die cutting. It's something that I don't really like doing, but it was worth it, and I decided to use them all. Just if I had 9, I would have used 9 clouds, but I had 8, so I just used them all. I'm going to first add this slimline panel on top of my card base using some tape roller. I had these purple tapes on the back of my panel just to keep everything in place while blending, but for adhering everything I prefer removing the purple tape because it is sort of getting in the way of adhering things sometimes. So just to be sure that everything is secured on there, I removed it. Inlaid the windows. You can also make a shaker card of this. You can use some dimension on how you are adding this panel, but for this card I really wanted to have the images all popped up, also the clouds, and then just have the rest to be one layer. So I have added some thin foam squares all over these images, and I'm going to add them as I placed them previously on top of this panel. And once that's done, I could start playing with the clouds. So as I said before, these clouds are going to be my embellishments for this card. It has some really bright colors, the pink and the blues. So I didn't want to step away from that and just keep this idea in the same sort of line and using the blues with the clouds. Now I have cut down my thin foam squares to fit behind these clouds, and first I added these darker ones on the bottom, but then halfway I just thought, no, with the dark pink it's actually cuter changing it up and adding all the darker clouds more towards the top. So I redid that and changed the darker clouds with the lightest ones. So it was a bit fiddling, these clouds getting those thin foam squares behind, but in the end I am really glad that these are also popped up. I really like that. Now here I started to realize that, well, I wanted those colors to be different. So I was really careful and I removed the clouds that were already on there to change it up. Like this, just switching them from place, and then once they are on there I am going to add some final details to this card, being some glossy accents. Of course, when there are balloons I want to use glossy accents, and I'm also going to use some stickles the crystal ones on top of the clouds themselves. Just on the bottom, I'm not filling them completely, but just wanted to add a bit of glitter. This card is pink, so why wouldn't I add a bit of glitter? And then once the glossy accent is on there, this card is completely finished. So I hope that you enjoyed this card and the video, and that you of course like the idea of the pinks and the blues together. I want to thank you all for taking the time to stop by this amazing YouTube channel by Crafty Meraki and to watch this video. I truly appreciate it that you're taking the time for that. If you didn't subscribe yet to this YouTube channel and you don't want to miss any crafty inspiration, you can subscribe by just clicking on the bottom underneath this video, and then you will never miss a video of Crafty Meraki ever again. I hope that you have a wonderful day left, and I will be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!